Glentaucher's distillery was founded in 1897 by James Buchanan, a renowned blender, and W.P. Lowrie, a Glasgow whiskey trader. 5 years later, Lowrie had financial issues, so James Buchanan bought him out. James Buchanan needed the Glentauchers to provide a lighter-bodied whiskey for his Buchanan's blend, as well as his black and white blends. Glentauchers was one of the few distilleries to get through the Pattison whiskey crisis unscathed and ran productively until they merged with DCL in 1925. The 12-ton stainless steel mash tun gets its water from the Rosary burn, and it fills 6 60,000-liter Oregon pine washbacks with a 60-hour fermentation time. The 3 large pear-shaped 17,875-liter wash stills and the 3 14,700-liter spirit stills make sure there is ample copper contact with the distillate. The long fermentation time and the slow distillation helps produce a light, fruity, floral spirit. Before World War I, Glentauchers experimented with a continuous production still, but eventually went back to making pot still malt whiskey. Glentauchers is not a name that most whiskey drinkers have heard of because it was only recently that it produced single malt bottlings. It has been used throughout its history in blends and today is a large part of Ballantine's Scotch whiskey. Glentaucher's Speyside Distillery is located a few miles west of Keith on the road to Craigellachie and is now owned by Pernod Ricard. Well, welcome to Noel's World of Whiskey, and we're going to do something a little different today. This is something that I'll be honest with you, I didn't even know about this distillery if it wasn't for a reviewer, a very well-known reviewer, Ralfy, that actually had mentioned this a few years back, and I had curiosity about it because he'd mentioned it several times. So I did research it, and the difficulty was trying to find a whiskey from this distillery. Now, there have been bottlings by independent bottlers. So, who is this distillery? Glentauchers. Glentauchers Distillery. And this is a Gordon and MacPhail bottling. So, I always like their cases. Good and solid, and typical of this one here. I think it had some of their distillery editions, and this one here is the Connoisseur's Choice range. So a little information on this distillery is that the reason we do not know of this distillery because it is used mostly in blends. Historically, it's been used mostly in blends. It's been around since the whiskey boom prior to the turn of the 20th, or probably the 19th century. So we look at it in the 1890s. We had all these distilleries that were built. A lot of them were designed by Charles Doig, the famous distillery designer, architect. And then the Pattison whiskey crisis came. And some of them didn't survive that. New distilleries, still waiting for the whiskey to mature, haven't really made big profits yet. And so the cycle goes. But this one sort of survived unscathed. So anyways, Glentauchers Distillery, Gordon MacPhail bottling. I am going to show you the bottle. And there it is. It is Cask Strength. It's a 15-year-old. Believe bottled in I think it was 2021 it was bottled, and it's a 2006. It actually gave me the date on the bottling there too, so it says the 16th of the 11th 2021 is the bottling, and of course we know it was distilled in 2006, and they do say it's 15 years old, and it is 57.6% cask strength, no coloring, non-chill filtered. That's what happens when you get an independent bottler. And when an independent bottler gets it, of course, we get a chance to get a unchill filtered, no color added, and usually some decent strength. So, I'm going to open this one up rather quick here because I'd like it to breathe. It's a potent whiskey, and also it is a new one. So what we want to do is pour it in the glass and let it sit for a bit here. And I always like the Gordon MacPhail's bottlings. So old company, third, fourth generation. Fourth generation. And they have their own distillery, Ben Romac. They've been bottling a long time, successfully. So we'll give it a good pour. And we will look at the glass. I was going to show you their beautiful boxes here. I like their boxes. I like the color too. You can see the box and also the. And we'll show you the. Get the little twirl. You can see there's very little color to this. It's 15 years old, cask strength. And see, we can see some legs there. Now, one of the interesting things with this partnership, W.P. Lowrie, he basically was a whiskey trader. Buchanan was a famous blender. Unfortunately, Lowrie did not financially do well with the Pattison crisis, but Buchanan had already established himself, and he kind of ended up, surviving it unscathed, and he eventually bought out Lowrie. Now, Buchanan's focus was he needed for his blends, he needed a light whiskey, which that distillery was known for, the type of stills they had and their type of production, their slow fermentation and their long fermentation and their slow distillation. So, anyways, he used a lot of the Glentauchers in the black and white blends, and of course the Buchanan's blends. And it was a very successful blend. It was actually considered, Buchanan's was kind of considered one of the smoother whiskeys that was more palatable for people that didn't like the stronger Highland bite. So, anyways, the production was good. They did survive through the First World War there, and they did join they merged with Dewars to battle DCL. DCL was a very, very powerful company, and they basically, in the end, by 1925, both of them succumbed to DCL. They ended up merging with them. So, interesting thing about this whiskey company is that it actually experimented with continuous stills. In other words, not your single pot batch whiskey, but the continuous distillation process with a special still. But it wasn't successful results, so they went back to their single pot batch stills, and they've basically been a whiskey that not a lot of people know about because they've always been used for blends. And of course today it's Ballantines, and they are just starting to get bottlings out there, and I have not seen one of their Glentaucher bottlings, but they are out there now. I think there's a 17 that's out there, but it is used, of course, in this whiskey, and I would say that we hopefully will see some more of their their bottlings done by them, but I've had more good luck with independent bottlers. So, anyways, let's take a peek at this here, and let's give it the nose and see see what it's all about. It's got a light nose, lots of floral notes. I'm getting malt, lots of floral malt, maybe some heather. I don't know, maybe even a slight bit of, I don't know if it's the casks, charred casks, a slight bit of a burnt smell. And definitely, we're now starting to get the citrus notes. But malt is kind of dominating here. Malt and the floral. Yeah, it's a nice nose. Let's try the palate. Solange. Boy, I got it right off the bat. I got some coffee. So there is some sweetness. It's light. I'm going to take another little sip because I didn't get much there. Grass. A little bit of hay. Some sweetness, not overpowering, not overly sweet. Slight citrus. Not super bitter, but there's definitely some spice happening here. Mixture of your baking spices. You know, I'd say a little bit of nutmeg, maybe even. But the coffee, or is it tobacco? It's tobacco. You get a little bit of tobacco. And nice coating on the mouth. I am going to give it the finish. Solange. Licorice. And tobacco. Like I say, it's not overly sweet. A bit of the citrus note still there. You know, it's not like the berries are overpowering, but there's a bit of berry stuff going on there with the citrus. In the background, again, very slight, sort of a burnt. I'm gonna say not burnt toffee. It's gonna be more like a burnt candy, like your candied apples. More of that brittle, or like a brittle, like a peanut brittle. So it's got a decent finish, which I would expect, you know, at Cask Strength. Definitely leaves a nice coating on the mouth. I think with a whiskey like this, it almost has to sit for another 15 minutes, in all honesty. So I did actually turn the camera off for a few minutes and let it sit. So you'll notice that toward the beginning there's a splice in the video. So I know some of the reviewers, they don't they want everything uncut. I don't. There's some stuff you just don't you don't need to see, and also trying to condense things, especially if you're a talkative person like me. But it also helps me with if I think something should sit for a while, and this one should sit for a while. You don't want to open this bottle, and I can tell you that right off the bat. So, but what we're going to do is we're going to add some water, and we're going to see what happens with water. So, with water to the nose. Now we're getting lemon. And we're getting some I know we're going to get a little bit of sweetness here. I can also really get the malt and the lemon and in the background, lots of flowers and some fruit, but more of peach, pear, apple stuff going on here. You know, I'm not really getting it's not what I had, the last few reviews, sherry. It's wood. It's bringing out the wood. Okay, with water, the palate. Massage. Licorice. Cinnamon. I've lost the brittle, as of the candied apple brittle, and I'm getting more caramel now, or even I'm going to say more toffee. Even getting a little bit of the malt dough, maybe even granola. I'd say more, yeah, definitely a bit of the granola notes. Malty, I think I've mentioned it in prior reviews. The malty breads I used to eat when I was down in Australia, in Tasmania. I used to hit a bakery there. I used to have malted barley loaf. Delicious. Been looking for it ever since up here. Anybody knows where it is on Vancouver Island, let me know, because I love that stuff. Even with water, nice finish. And water really helps this, by the way. Really smartens it up. But in all fairness, new bottle, 57 plus percent, 57.8 or whatever I said there. It needed to sit. That's all there is to it. It needs to sit. It needs to breathe. It needs a little bit of water. Let's give it a shot. Let's give it a chance to really, open up and express itself. There's a lot more to this than the first tasting, and that's why I'm almost getting religious about when you're opening a fresh bottle, especially something that's cask strength. It has to sit for a while. That's all there is to it. I like to show off the opening of the new bottle, but at the same time, I just don't think it's that smart just to go right into it. And I've done that enough. I don't think the results are fair for the whiskey, and I don't think it's fair for me to do a review on something like that for you. And I'm hoping you're doing the same thing. So, but anyways, I am going to add another drop or two of water to this. I haven't put a lot of water. Because the stuff that I've been reviewing in the past doesn't require a lot of water, and so I have my straw here only expels a little bit of water at a time, so just a drop or two at a time. So that time I did get a little bit more in there, but I don't use a spoon. I know I'm really calculating and measuring carefully what is going into most of the whiskeys I review, because they're not as potent as this. So this one here, of course, it can take a little more. That's all there is to it. Really floral. Really opens up. Lots of flowers coming at me there. Oh yes. I'm going to stay with the licorice, by the way. Sweeter licorice. All sorts. Nice spices. Baking spices. Malt. Stay with the granola. And overall, yeah, the water does help. It really does help. I think that really helped my score, because it wasn't doing too good there. But again, I know from experience that what I'm getting is not the real whiskey. I'm getting the surface, the alcohol. It has to breathe. So, anyways, I'm gonna give this an 85. I think it's a good, honest 85 at Cask Strength, and certainly down the road, I'd like to do it again. I'm noticing there's some good whiskeys out there that some of the reviewers did not give good marks to, but they opened them up fresh, like like I did. And these are well-known reviewers. I know the Four Dummies, they did a Two Mountain 18, and I was, I almost never bought a bottle of it because of their review, but then I went out and bought one anyways. And I noticed bit of the same of what they said at the beginning, but then I noticed Ralfy had done a few reviews on it, and what I found was that the whiskey over time improved. It brought out more flavor. It brought out a lot more of what it was all about. It distinguished layers that I could identify with. It was a huge improvement over when I first tasted it, when I first cracked open the bottle. So I use that as an example, and I don't know. It'd be nice to see if the Four Dummies go back to that whiskey, if they still have it, and it's maybe it's halfway down the bottle or 2/3 down the bottle, and pour it again, and then let it sit maybe for 18 years should be 18 minutes, shouldn't it? Well, something close to that. Now, if it's been open before, maybe not that long, but that's how I look at this. And this is, even more potent than the Tomatin. So I'm just trying to be fair with these whiskeys. Now, I am going to go back to Tomatin and do it, because I have actually sipped on it recently, and I'm actually really liking the 18, where, in the beginning, I think when I first tasted it, I was almost in agreement with the Four Dummies. So anyways, that's another story, and that's going to be another time. Glentauchers, my score is going to be 85. And again, I'm going to ask you to drink wisely, drink intelligently, do not drink and drive. Until the next time, so much.